Hello guys, this is the first video on this channel, so I hope you would enjoy it. And if you do, please make sure to like it, and without wasting much of your time, let's get right into it.
The existence of ghosts is a very controversial, or rather a very debatable statement. Being a rational thinker myself, I have never believed in the existence of spirits because, much like others, I have never seen them with my bare eyes. But that thing I had seen 5 years back still sends shivers to my spine. I don't really know whether what I saw was real or I was just engulfed in my dreams. So today, I'm going to tell that incident which still feels like a nightmare to me. My family owned a villa in a very remote village far across the countryside. It was my father's paternal house, which he left to continue his business here in Pune. My grandfather had passed away when dad was pursuing his degree in college, leaving my grandma as the only person to be living there as far as I knew. So when she died, dad inherited the house since he was the only heir of the family. The house had been abandoned since then. I was at my 25 at that point, and as passionate as youth can be, I wanted to start off a business of my own. But for that, I needed a huge sum of money. So I reluctantly asked my father if he had some to help me, to which he replied, "No, I don't really have that much, but..." He thought for a moment. "How about you sell my country house, since no one is really using it, and I think it would be enough for you to start off." My parents have always been supportive of me since childhood, but damn, I could never imagine that my dad would be ready to go to the extent of selling the house, which had so many memories of his childhood, just so that he can see me succeed in my life. I did hesitate a bit, but in the end, I was left with no choices. So we both agreed, but before searching for a buyer, I wanted to visit the house and check the actual condition of that abandoned wreckage. The next day, I packed my bag, took the house keys from my dad, and was ready for the journey. As I got off the train, there was little to no transport to carry me to my destination because, as I mentioned, it was a very remote place, which made finding buyers even more difficult. But anyways, it almost took me half an hour to find some kind of carriage to get to my desired location. On my way, I did not see more than a dozen villagers rambling around in this whole deserted mess they call a village. Now I can understand why my father must have left this place to stay in the city. Anyways, as I reached the place, I was shocked to see that I was standing in front of a house that had been abandoned for years, as it looked completely new to me. So I went around the house to check if anything was broken or missing, but everything looked fine to me. As I made my way inside the house, my perception completely changed because as soon as I went inside, I could see that I wasn't entirely wrong about it being an absolute wreckage of a house. None of the furniture was in its place, even the ceiling fan seemed to have fallen on the table with shattered glass all over the floor, and cobwebs were hanging around the house. I had to be careful as I made my way to the first floor. There were many portraits which had gotten a rich covering of dust, getting accumulated all these years. These paintings were probably of my ancestors, whom I had never seen up till now. As I reached the first floor, I opened each room one by one, but all of these rooms were in a better condition than the living room downstairs. The house was almost entirely dark, with very little light piercing through the thick layering of dust that had settled on the windows of the house. There were 4 rooms on the first floor, and one room other than the living room downstairs. But I noticed that Dad had given me keys to only 4 rooms in the house. Now I realized that the missing key must have been of the room which I didn't open downstairs. My curiosity led me to the room, which was on the far right corner of my living room. As I reached to the door, I got a rotten smell from that room, and since there was a keyhole to that room, I decided to look through it. What I saw through the keyhole really weirded me out because I knew this room too had a window, which I noticed when I was circling the premises of the house. But this room was pitch dark black, which is quite unlike the other rooms, which, even though had their windows covered with dirt, but some sunlight could at least pierce through it. I did not pay much heed and disregarded the rotten smell to be some kind of dead rat or mice to be behind the closed doors and went off to the first floor. I realized that I really messed up because the sun was on its way to nightfall and it was too late to find a carriage to go back to home. So I had to clean the room on the first floor and spend a night there. Tired from all these hustle I had done throughout the day, I quickly dozed off to sleep. It wasn't long enough that I woke up from what someone would call a spine-shearing scream. At first, I was totally in awe that whether what I heard was real or something I had dreamt of, but ultimately I decided to step out to check the source of the sound. It wasn't really uncommon for a thief to take shelter in these abundant places at night, but howling in this way was what I found really uncanny. Anyways, as I checked three rooms of the first floor and I was just headed toward the last one, I heard that heart-wrenching scream once more, and this time it didn't stop, which made me realize that it wasn't coming from this floor. So I made my way down to the living room to find the sound of these screams to be coming from behind the closed doors. I felt that the dreadful scream wasn't of agony, but was of immeasurable pain followed along with sobbing. Treading through all the glass carefully as I stepped near the door, I was shocked to see a light flickering on the other side, with the rotten odor growing stronger and stronger. I had to check whether there was someone on the other side, so I gathered up all my courage and looked through the keyhole, and what I saw still keeps me up at night. Through the flickering dim light, all I could see was 2 feet levitating in the air, with some kind of liquid constantly dripping in front of it. Through all this, I felt that the legs were jostling up in the air as if they were trying to find some support beneath it. To satisfy my curiosity, I tried to peek beneath the door to check what floor it was, but being unable to see anything, I collapsed, my heart holding it right inside my chest long enough to check through the keyhole for the final time. What I saw this time took all the sense out of my living body. I don't know when these screams must have stopped, as I must have lost my senses, and the next day morning I found myself waking up in front of the same door. Going back to my room, I picked up my phone and called Dad and asked him why he had not given me the key to the room next to the living room. To which, after a moment of silence, he began saying,
I know what I might tell might sound very weird to you, which is why I kept this to myself. But since you're asking,
he continued.
I had a sister named Jane, and she was my only sibling in the family. During her adolescence, she was suffering from a disease which made her eyes puffed. At that point, no one knew what kind of disease that was, so she had to live with it. When I left home to do whatever I am doing now in the city, she was left together with mom, and it was when things got really out of hand. This thing that she had made her eyes cornea so red that it almost felt like it was a big bubble of blood in her eyes. Even when she cried, it seemed like streams of blood were flooding out of her eyes. Because of all the pain she had to go through, she committed a suicide in that room, and I often heard from mom that she heard screams which felt like Jane was screaming from her pain from her room. I disregarded it at first, but after contemplation, we decided to keep this room locked for the rest of our lives.
This actually explains that what I saw before becoming unconscious was a bloody red eye directly staring at my soul from behind that door.
So that was it, guys. If you would like to listen to more horror content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel, which will in turn motivate us to bring more videos like this in the near future. Thank you.